This is a full story. Kitten wishes you all a happy day, an enjoyable story. My ex-wife was in a car accident. She lost her memory. She turned into a 20-year-old girl again. Her memory stopped at the moment when she loved me the most. Rocky, so you're my husband 10 years from now. Hailey jumped off the hospital bed, surprised and delighted. She rushed toward me and hugged me tightly. Am I dreaming? Oh my God, my secret crush really came true. I stood there stunned by her embrace. But inside I felt nothing but desolation. Hailey, you've forgotten. We got divorced last month, I said softly, and you were the one who cheated. It was the Lunar New Year. Everyone else was celebrating in joy, but I, the biggest fool alive, was standing outside the courthouse waiting in vain. I waited the whole day, even after the staff went home. My ex-wife never showed up. Damn it, she was the one who asked for the divorce. We even signed the agreement, and now she disappears when it's time to finalize it. How amusing is that? Fuming with rage, I kept calling her over and over, but her phone was off the entire time. Night fell. The courthouse closed. I realized I wouldn't be getting divorced today. Defeated, I dragged myself to the parking lot, ready to drive away. Just as I started the engine, my phone rang. Hello, are you Miss Hailey's family? We're calling from the First People's Hospital. Miss Hailey was in a car accident. Great. I didn't manage to get divorced, and now I'm getting scam calls. I didn't hesitate. Yes, I'm her husband. Is she dying? Don't waste any medical resources. Just let her go. Yes, I said it. I'll take full responsibility. Just push her straight to the morgue. The person on the other end was stunned. Miss Hailey only has a broken leg. The doctor sounded young, clearly inexperienced with families like mine. His voice trembled. We've already put her leg in a cast. Could you come by if you have time? He was being vague. I frowned, feeling something was off, but still replied politely, no need. It's just a fracture. I'm busy, so I won't come. I see. He sounded disappointed but continued. Also, Miss Hailey was in the accident with Mr. Tony. We haven't been able to reach his family. Do you know him? When I heard that name, I suddenly perked up. I know him. What happened to him? He's in critical condition. Severe contusions all over. His hand may be permanently disabled, and he'll probably be scarred for life. I'm on my way, I shouted overjoyed. First People's Hospital, right? Which building, which floor? I'll be there in 20 minutes. The doctor replied. We're in building 2, 5th floor. I hung up immediately, slammed the gas pedal. My black SUV shot forward like a shark, forcing its way into the crowded traffic. As soon as I got the call, my gloom disappeared completely. Yes, my ex-wife broke her leg in a car crash. Who cares if she lives or dies? But the pretty boy who wrecked my marriage got disfigured and crippled. Now that's something worth seeing. When I heard about Hailey, I didn't flinch, but when I heard Tony was ruined, I dashed to the hospital, didn't even wait for the elevator. I climbed 5 flights of stairs on foot. I was desperate, terrified I might miss the show. Even the doctors were shocked that I arrived so fast. Beaming with joy, I burst into the room. Where's Tony? How badly is his hand crippled? How big are the scars? Let me see. Let me see. Everyone in the room looked at me, their faces awkward. I wasn't the least bit embarrassed. I was thrilled. Where is he? Where is he? But the next second, the curtain around the bed was pulled back. Hailey sat there, her leg in a full cast. She stared at me, shocked and confused. My smile instantly faded. She looked at me, her voice trembling and uncertain. Are you Rocky's older brother? I blinked. What? Then sneered. No, I'm your father. I had no idea why, but that hit her like a punch. She held her head, grimaced in pain, and lay back down. The doctor pulled me out of the room and explained, Miss Hailey has a concussion. Her memory is scrambled. She remembers basic facts, but when we asked her age, she said she's 20-inch. I wasn't really listening. The doctor caught on. Mr. Tony is on the 6th floor, still in critical condition. You can see him through the glass. I didn't say a word, just turned and ran. Everyone stared in silence. When I reached the 6th floor and saw Tony with my own eyes, that pretty boy who destroyed my marriage was now wrapped head to toe in bandages. His right hand twisted in a grotesque shape. That once handsome face was beyond recognition. For a moment, out of basic humanity, I felt pity, but then I remembered what he did to me, and my pity vanished instantly, because I am not a saint. When I returned to the 5th floor, I pulled out the cash from my wallet and started handing out money to everyone in the room. Yes, I wanted everyone to share in my joy, and indeed, they did feel it. The doctor took the money, his hand trembling slightly. Mr. Rockey, the patient's condition is a bit complicated. Our hospital's resources are somewhat limited. I waved my hand dismissively, full of arrogance and flair. She thinks she's 20. Let her be 20. Whatever. You all seem decent. Treat her. Even if you mess up and kill her, I won't cause trouble. Silence fell over the entire room. Not a single person could respond. There were doctors, there were nurses, and standing in the corner were Hailey's secretary and lawyer. They tried their best to turn away, shrinking back, as if hoping I wouldn't see them. I chuckled. I don't have a say in Hailey's treatment anymore. Eventually, I admitted to the doctor, though we haven't gone through the legal procedure yet. We've already signed the divorce papers. I'm no longer her legal representative. That's her assistant and lawyer over there. I pointed at the corner. The two of them shivered, too ashamed to meet my eyes, trying harder to hide themselves. I said, "Talk to them." The secretary and lawyer nodded timidly, timid to the point of being laughable. Seeing this, I found it all extremely amusing. You two helped with the divorce, but at the end of the day, you're just employees. I pulled out a cigarette, put it between my lips, didn't even bother to light it, then smiled at them. "Don't be afraid of me. I'm not the bad guy here." The secretary stood there awkwardly, nowhere to hide. The lawyer, young and a little uptight, blushed when I smiled at her. Mr. Rockey. Her face turned completely red. Even her metal-rimmed glasses couldn't hold up her professional aura. She said to me, "You didn't have to come." "Yeah," I replied with good temper, very relaxed. I was just about to leave. Just then, the curtain around the hospital bed was suddenly pulled open. It was Hailey, having endured another wave of headaches, finally awake. The secretary rushed toward her. The 20-year-old version of CEO Hailey glanced around the room, but completely ignored her trusted staff. She looked at me, her expression dazed and confused. "Rocky, what happened to you? You look a bit older than I remember." I touched my face. Of course, it's been 10 years. Who wouldn't age? I didn't bother arguing with this lunatic. Didn't feel like talking to her at all. I turned to leave. Then came a loud crash behind me. Hailey, with her leg in a full cast, had tried to get off the bed, but lost her balance and fell. She fell to the ground, then desperately crawled toward me, like someone possessed. "Rocky, don't go." The secretary rushed over to help her, but Hailey pushed her away. This version of Hailey, whose memory stopped at 20, didn't recognize her own most loyal people anymore. Her face was full of confusion, bewilderment, and urgency. "I don't even know who you people are. Leave me alone. Rocky, wait for me. Take me with you." She lay there on the floor, shouting toward the door, completely alone, calling out in despair, "Don't leave me behind." I had already walked out of the hospital room, but when I heard the noise, I turned back in shock. Hailey was a rising star in the tech world, a self-made woman, famous before she was even 26. Everyone respectfully called her Miss Hailey, the young CEO. Her fame came with a sharp edge. She was cold, strict, and hard to approach, always kept others at arm's length. Now, she was lying face down on the floor, all dignity gone, crawling toward me like mad. I suddenly turned back, squatted down in front of her, and asked, "Do you really only remember me? Who am I?" Hailey reached out, grabbed my arm without hesitation, as if terrified I might leave again. She didn't even blink. "You're Rocky. You live next door to me. Your dad's name is Bame. Your mom's a high school teacher. You're severely allergic to peanuts and seafood. Even a small bite would make your whole face swell up." That was all correct. The corner of my mouth twitched. "So you think you're 20. Think about it. When we were 20, we were both in our second year of college. Now look at your face. Do you still look like a college girl?" Hailey touched her face, then looked at me again, and for some reason, she blushed. I stared at her, speechless. "I heard the doctor talking to you on the phone." Hailey sat on the floor, dragging her broken leg. Her expression was serious, but her eyes darted away from mine. "I know I'm not really 20. When I saw you, I could tell. I must have hit my head and forgot everything from the past few years." She clutched my arm again and finally said, "You're my husband now." I didn't say a word. At that moment, I just felt tired. Before I came to the hospital, I had waited all day at the courthouse, watching countless couples get married and countless couples say their painful goodbyes. I told myself, when it was time to separate from Hailey, I had to do it with dignity, without hatred, without drama. I'm a man who values pride, but I never expected Hailey, that reckless idiot, to veer off the highway and crash into the barrier with her boy toy. So I stood up, because Hailey was still clutching my arm, refusing to let go. I had no choice but to help her up. With her leg in a cast, she could only stand on one foot. She looked around warily, at her secretary and her lawyer, like a wounded animal, separated from its pack. To get out of this mess, I pulled the secretary closer and said to Hailey, "You're Hailey. You're 30 years old now. You're the founder and CEO of Galaxy Tech. That's your assistant and your corporate lawyer. You can trust them." Hailey looked at them, frowning. I smiled at her. "Even if you don't remember, congratulations, Hailey. At 30, you've really made it big." But she just stared at me, then asked, "How long have we been married?" I answered patiently, 5 years. She did the math in her head. Her eyes began to drift. If we got married right after college, then did we have a child? I paused. Yes, I said calmly. But at 4 months, we lost it. Hailey took a step back. My words stabbed into her like a knife. She let go of my arm and began to tremble. She didn't even understand why she had such a strong reaction. She stood there, shaking violently, completely confused. A sudden wave of pain hit her, crushing her heart, breaking her from the inside out. She grabbed her head and cried out in anguish. Rockey. I stood there, watching her coldly, completely unmoved, until Hailey collapsed again, holding her head in her hands, shaking, her face twisted in agony, tears streaming down. The doctors and nurses rushed in to help. Everyone else panicked. In the chaos, I turned to the secretary. Please reschedule our court appointment. We'll finalize the divorce next Wednesday. The secretary stared at me, flustered, too stunned to speak, but I had already turned and walked away. I got married when I was 25. Not too early, not too late. It was the time when we were at our poorest. I didn't even have 100 yuan to my name, so I bought a 58 yuan strawberry cake, lit a candle, and proposed to Hailey with that. You couldn't call it simple. It was downright shabby. Other people have flowers, rings, romantic dinners. All we had was that cake. We were crammed in a tiny rented room, eating cake, frosting smeared all over our faces. Still hungry afterward, so I went into the kitchen and made instant noodles. The kitchen was small. Steam from the pot filled the whole room. Hailey suddenly walked in. She said, "Why don't we just get married?" I froze for a second, then said, "All right." And just like that, after finishing our instant noodles, we went to the courthouse the next day, got our marriage certificate, became legal husband and wife. We had grown up next door to each other, childhood sweethearts, from innocence, through youth, all the way to 30. No mysterious first loves, no scheming seductresses, no unexpected love rivals. We loved each other, fought side by side. Finally, by the time we turned 30, my company landed a few key projects. With technology as our weapon, investment poured in like the tide. We rode that wave and rose to become the city's new elite. At 31, I caught Hailey in bed with her male assistant. Our marriage shattered instantly, right there, in our own home. Hailey was lying in bed, still drunk from the night before. When we burst in, she didn't even know what was happening. I took a bottle of mineral water and splashed it straight in her face. Tony, wrapped in a towel, was trapped in the bathroom by my friends. One man with 3 backup buddies. Seeing so many of my loyal brothers show up, he was completely panicked, almost ready to beg for mercy. It was President Hailey who asked me to come keep her company. He stammered, "I'm just an intern. How could I say no to my boss?" That's it. My friends started rolling up their sleeves, ready to beat him up. If I'd known you had this kind of talent, I would have transferred you to the marketing department. I smiled coldly at him. President Wong from our client's side loves young boys. Since you're so good at saying yes, why not follow through and close that deal? Your year-end bonus would be at least 100 grand. Tony never expected my mind to work like that. He choked on his own breath, stunned silent. Seeing that I really intended to make use of it, Tony clutched his only towel and weakly defended himself. I really have feelings for President Hailey. What a pathetic excuse for a boy toy. How dumb can someone be? I actually laughed at his stupidity, but that laugh didn't last, because Hailey wiped the water off her face, got dressed, calmly sat up from the bed, and asked me for a divorce. Yes, she wanted a divorce. She didn't care about the joint assets. She didn't care about the company's operations. She was absolutely determined, set on taking the ring off my finger within 3 months. That very night, she packed up and moved out of our home. I screamed, cursed, smashed my office and the company, but our marriage was already in ruins. It wrecked my state of mind completely. Even during the divorce negotiations, her trusted secretary played me like a fool. The divorce papers said the company had nothing to do with me. I could only walk away with 1/3 of our shared assets, even the house my parents paid for. Hailey wanted half. I couldn't believe it, but what could I do? Everything was already a mess. When I finally accepted reality and agreed to the divorce, that foolish woman, Hailey, got into a car accident and lost her memory. She truly forgot everything. Years of life experience, gone in an instant. With one car crash, she literally achieved return as a girl after half a lifetime. Business, deals, chaos. She couldn't understand a thing. The Hailey whose memory stopped at 20 could solve quadratic equations, but couldn't manage a company. She sat there, staring blankly at the documents from her secretary, mind completely empty, but she still remembered me. Even I couldn't recall clearly what I was like at 20, but the 20-year-old Hailey was so vivid, so beautiful, it was impossible to ignore her. especially since she only remembered me. To be honest, after all these years, the one thing I never expected was just how shameless Hailey's secretary could be. Because back when we were divorcing, that woman stabbed me in the back. That so-called trusted secretary quietly helped Hailey transfer company shares, then worked through the board to kick me out of the picture. I lost management rights, lost controlling shares. Altogether, I lost more than 50 million yuan. Last time at the hospital, I was just being polite, putting on a fake show. But what I didn't expect was that she wasn't polite at all. That so-called loyal secretary actually brought Hailey straight to my house to block me in person because Hailey wanted to see me. The secretary used me as bait to trick this emotionally immature young CEO into attending an important executive meeting. Then, to fulfill her promise, she brought Hailey to confront me. When they arrived, I was in the middle of moving out. Hailey had moved out on the day I caught her cheating. That house had become empty of us. Since the divorce was coming, of course I couldn't stay there anymore. A friend helped me find a new apartment. I had signed the purchase agreement last month. Most things had already been set up, but I couldn't bear to leave behind the good furniture. These things weren't cheap, and now someone new was going to enjoy them, so I decided I would take them with me. When we met, the atmosphere was strange. The secretary looked awkward. After all, she had cost me a lot of money. I felt guilty too, because I was quietly moving out furniture we bought during the marriage. This time, the secretary made the first move. She said to me, "Brother Yuan, you know, I'm just an employee. We each serve our own master." President Hailey gave me a chance when no one else did. In matters this big, I couldn't mess it up. I rolled my eyes at her. Sure, repay your kindness, die for your queen, and I'm just supposed to accept my fate. She lost a boss. I lost 50 million. We whispered to each other on the balcony. Meanwhile, Hailey had already wandered through every room of the house. When she saw me, alone with the secretary, whispering in the corner, she got visibly unsettled. She walked up and pulled us apart. She pointed at the moving boxes and asked, "Is this going to be our new home? I think this house is nice. Why are we moving out? Are we upgrading to something bigger and fancier?" I looked at her and said, "I'm the one moving out. You're staying here." Hailey didn't understand. I said coldly, "Because we signed the divorce agreement last month. You cheated." I never expected Hailey's reaction. She froze, then burst out laughing, as if she'd heard the most ridiculous joke in the world. She laughed until her eyes sparkled, her voice carefree and bright. "Don't joke about things like that." I looked at her, calm and composed. "All good things come to an end, even you and me." "Impossible." She said it without hesitation, like it was the most obvious truth in the world. "If you told me we never got together, fine, but since we're married, there's no way I'll leave you." That made me want to laugh, because she had forgotten so much. She forgot the brutal, harsh, unfair way our assets were divided. She forgot the cold, empty, numb expression she had when she placed the divorce agreement in front of me. She forgot how she told me herself, "Let's just be done with it. We'll both be free." The Hailey who remembered only being 20 was exactly like this. She didn't remember anything. She didn't know anything. She blindly believed that if we were in love, then we'd never be apart. And so, that moment, I was filled with dark thoughts. Why is it always me, the man, who has to suffer, who has to take the hit? No, I wanted her to hurt too. I wanted her to feel pain. So I asked, "Why? Why do you think we won't separate?" Hailey looked at me. In that moment, the 20-year-old and 30-year-old versions of her merged into one, but her gaze was pure and serious. She said to me, "I liked you for so many years. After finally getting you, how could I ever let go?" The room fell silent. The secretary's face cracked, unsure how to react to her amnesiac boss, who now acted like a love-struck girl, declaring her devotion to the ex-husband she was supposed to be divorcing. And I said nothing, because the 20-year-old Hailey did truly like me like that. It was a little cringy. Sure, even Hailey herself couldn't take it. She quickly made up an excuse, said she wanted to check out the kitchen, and fled the scene. The balcony felt strangely empty. Just me and the secretary left standing there. She looked at my expression, too afraid to speak. What could she even say? "Congrats. Looks like our boss is in love with you again." Or, "Sorry, our boss might be mentally unstable, but the divorce will still go ahead as planned." Nothing was appropriate. Nothing could be said, because the Hailey who loved me was living 10 years in the past. She had only temporarily forgotten all the bitterness between us. A dream, no matter how sweet, is still a bubble. Once her memory returns, everything will be exposed for what it is. Even now, even with this brief illusion, our marriage was beyond repair. But as I watched Hailey wandering aimlessly around the kitchen, I suddenly smiled. A quiet, gentle smile, like a spring breeze, like I had been pulled back into the days of being in love. Maybe. The 20-year-old Hailey's sincerity touched me. Not only did I cancel the move, I invited her to stay for dinner. I smiled brightly and cooked for her myself. myself. Yes, the way I looked at her was soft and tender, like I was looking at the person I loved most in the world. At first, Hailey was flustered, caught off guard by my gentleness, but very soon, she gathered her courage and got used to it. Yes, it was already 10 years later. We had been married for 5 years. We were husband and wife, sitting down for a meal together. Why not? Watching her dazed expression, my smile deepened. The Hailey who lost her memory was still Hailey. The Hailey stuck at age 20 was still Hailey. As long as she was Hailey, she could amend legal documents. She could make voluntary asset transfers. Perfect, I thought. I finally knew how to take back the $50 million I had lost. When we first started the divorce process, Hailey and I fought like crazy. Truly crazy. It was like the end of the world, because we had built the company together. And now that we were splitting up, the whole organization was shaken. Even the employees were forced to pick sides. As for Tony, the final straw that broke the camel's back, he instantly became a rat crossing the street. Everyone hated him. But after I got played, after I lost control of the company, everything changed. Reality leaves no room for sentiment. What happened to my marriage was my personal business. Even the employees who sympathized with me had families to feed. They couldn't risk their jobs over me. So even though they disapproved of Tony, they accepted him as the next boss. Tony probably thought the same. Until today, when Hailey walked into the company, holding my hand, everyone was stunned. Hailey was 20 again, that age when she loved me the most. Even though I was no longer the teenage boy in a school uniform, she remembered. She still fell for me. With everything she had, I was no longer that pure-hearted student. After all these years, I had faced storms that could swallow anyone whole, and I knew her too well. It took nothing to make her fall for me again, to make her obsessed. No one saw this coming, but most employees were genuinely happy for us. Many of them had been with us since the early days. They had seen us fight side by side, climb our way to the top together. When our marriage collapsed, they truly felt sorry. Now, seeing us back together, they were delighted, but not everyone was pleased. The secretary, she joined the company later, so the only version of us she ever saw was two people at each other's throats. Now, she watched helplessly as the amnesiac Hailey circled around me like a lovesick fool, desperately chasing my affection. In her eyes, Hailey had just hit her head, gone a little dumb, and she was deeply on guard, afraid I'd take advantage of her boss's condition and do something that would harm her interests. So she tried to offer Hailey some unpleasant but loyal advice. Hailey gave her a faint smile, then exploded on the spot, slammed the desk, and kicked the secretary out of the office. They almost got into a full-blown fight. The secretary's point was simple, summed up in one sentence. Boss, this man is no good. Hailey's logic was even simpler. If Rockey is no good, then what makes you any better? Veins popped on Hailey's forehead. Her face turned crimson. She stood in the office, shouting at the top of her lungs. She was absolutely furious. I've known Rockey for years. We were neighbors, you understand. When I was 16, my parents ran off because of debts. I couldn't even afford tuition. Rockey gave me every penny of his allowance. He didn't even eat breakfast, just so I could have lunch. Her eyes were bloodshot. She screamed. Rockey's family didn't have money either. When his parents found out, of course they blamed him. Rockey knelt on the floor, begging them to help me, to give me a chance. At this point, Hailey was grinding her back teeth. Her face was red with rage, but tears streamed down her face. She cried, "Why does everyone keep telling me he's a bad person? He's the one who's treated me the best in this entire world. I only have him." When I was 16, my mom tried to give me a way to pay off a debt. The man wanted to cut off my hand. Rockey stood in front of me. He said, "Then cut mine instead." And now you're saying, Rockey's only treating me well because he wants my company. If it weren't for Rockey, how could I even have this company today? Everything I have should belong to him. The secretary got coffee thrown on her, left the office in total disgrace. I stood silently outside the office door, listening to the yelling inside. Employees passing by heard every word. Their faces showed all kinds of emotion. They couldn't help glancing at me, like I was the tragic lead in some dramatic play, because they remembered, back during the divorce, I got cheated on. Everything exploded into chaos. And now, Hailey, with her damaged brain, was raging in love, screaming her loyalty to the skies. But when she was still normal, she stood in the same place and ripped me to pieces, without mercy, no matter how deep the young love had been. This was the reality. I said nothing. Hailey was still fuming. I knocked on the door, drawing everyone's attention. "It's already noon." I smiled at her. "What do you want to eat?" "I'm feeling a little hungry." The moment she heard me, Hailey immediately dropped her anger, forgot all about her harsh secretary. She ran over, grabbed my hand, and pulled me outside. "Then let's hurry and get something to eat," she said. "You never eat breakfast. You must be feeling terrible by now." "It's all right." I gently took her hand and said, "They were just looking out for you. No need to get so worked up." I shouldn't have said that. The moment I brought it up, Hailey got mad again. She shouted, "Do you know what they said? They said you were after my money, that you wanted to steal my company." I smiled gently, even lifted my hand to wipe the sweat from her forehead. "And what if I really was thinking that? Then I'll give it all to you," Hailey said without hesitation. "You're Rocky. If you ask me for something, how could I say no?" Hearing that, my smile grew even brighter. I even pulled her into a hug. "I know," I whispered by her ear. "Hailey, you've always been the best to me." Hailey nearly floated into the clouds. So overjoyed, she pulled me outside, insisting we get a proper meal. I let her drag me as I pulled out my phone and sent a WeChat message to my lawyer. The message was simple. "Is the contract I asked for ready?" True to his reputation, the lawyer didn't ask anything, just replied, "Already done. No issues at all. You can sign this afternoon." Seeing that, I put away my phone, finally at ease. Who knew when Hailey's brain might suddenly recover? The longer it dragged on, the greater the risk. In both business and marriage, only the one who strikes first gets the last laugh, Hailey thought. The me in my 30s was mature and gentle. She believed the years had changed me for the better. But when I smiled at her, she still thought I was her Rocky. She was incredibly curious about everything that happened in the missing years, kept asking me question after question. I answered patiently, one by one. At the start, we made our first bit of money selling at street stalls. I bought a broken machine from a junkyard, fixed it up myself, and we used it to make bootleg music tapes, set up a booth in the streets. Later business got so good, we expanded, recruited a team of sub-distributors. We just provided the supply. In the first week, we made 50,000 yuan. In the bright, elegant restaurant, I took a sip of lemon water. I said gently, "But of course, that kind of business attracts local bullies." We barged into their turf, broke their rules. A bunch of them came to our place with steel pipes and machetes. We had to hand over most of our earnings. Only then did they leave us alone. "You were so scared, cried your eyes out, but I was afraid they'd really chop off your hand. So even though I was shaking, I still stood in front of you." Hailey believed every word because I was Rocky, and it was exactly the kind of thing I would do for her. She trusted me as much as she trusted herself. While we talked, I finished cutting my steak and passed a piece to her. Gentle, attentive, emotional. The more she saw of this, the less she believed that we had ever divorced. How could she divorce me? After all those years together, especially with a love so solid from the start, we had been through everything together. Tell her that one day we would grow tired of each other, that we'd resent, hate, and curse each other. She'd never believe it. It was absurd. I glanced at my phone. My lawyer had already arrived at the company, so I put down my knife and fork, said I was full, that I had unfinished work, and needed to head back. Hailey cared so much. Without even thinking, she quickly finished her steak. "What work is that urgent? So urgent you can't even eat properly. Let me help." "You can help," I said gently. "I do need your signature." Hailey didn't hesitate, didn't look, didn't even think. She waved her hand. "As long as it helps you, I'll do anything." What was this? This was divine intervention. I spoke softly, checked in on her, held her hand tightly. When crossing the street, I looked left, then right, waited 5 minutes before walking her across. Even in the elevator, I made sure she kept a 1-meter distance from others. I was terrified. Something might go wrong, that something might hit her in the head, turn her back into that woman who cheated on me, who put a green hat on my head, and ruined everything. The lawyer was already in my office, prepared and eager. The contracts were lined up in perfect order. We had also prepared full video and audio equipment to prevent her from going back on her word later. Hailey saw the setup, but didn't quite understand what was going on. Still, she could read the words on the contracts. Words like gift, transfer, voluntary renunciation made her confused. She asked me, "What is all this?" I didn't answer her directly. I just held her face gently in my hands and said, "Are you willing to give me everything you have?" Hailey opened her mouth to answer, but was suddenly struck by a sharp pain in her head. The pain was so intense. She felt dizzy. She couldn't even stand properly. She fumbled to sit down, holding her head, splitting pain ripping through her skull. But I didn't let up. I still asked, "Are you willing to give your things to me?" Hailey was in agony, but she clenched her teeth and answered me, "Everything I have, I can give to you. If it weren't for you, I would have died a long time ago. So everything I own should be yours." I exchanged a glance with the lawyer. He got to work immediately. The contracts had many signature lines, but the lawyer had already carefully marked them with professional precision. He flipped through the pages quickly, pointing out each place Hailey needed to sign. Hailey was dizzy, nauseous, barely holding on, but a few soft words from me calmed her down. I even kissed her on the cheek, and that did it. She lit up like she'd been injected with pure adrenaline, forgot about her headache, ignored the dizziness. Without reading, She picked up the pen and started signing away. One person flipped the pages. One person signed. The speed was incredible. I watched, satisfied. The last time we tried something like this, Hailey and I got into a huge fight just to get one divorce agreement signed. It took an entire month, but this time, it only took Hailey 5 minutes to sign every single contract. The lawyer quickly adjusted the audio and video equipment, then handed her a prepared script and asked her to read it aloud. Hailey was in agony. Her head felt like it was going to explode, but she didn't want to disappoint me, didn't want to make me sad, so she bit down and pushed through. Everything was nearly done, and it was going far too smoothly. Very soon, I would regain my assets, my company, my shares, and Hailey would be left with nothing. But right at that moment, the locked office door was smashed open with a fire axe. The scene was shocking. Wood splinters flew. Violence tore through the room. We were all stunned. Looking out, it was exactly who I expected. Hailey's secretary, come to the rescue. She took one look at the contracts on the table, the equipment set up, and completely lost it. She knew it. She always knew. I was no good. The way I went mad during the divorce, the hatred I radiated. Everyone could see there was no way back. And now suddenly, I was all smiles, gentle, kind. Of course I was plotting something. The secretary stormed in, determined to stop everything. Hailey's head was pounding, but she forced herself to stand and shouted, "What are you doing here?" That almost drove the secretary mad. She pointed at me and shouted, "Boss, he's tricking you. He's stealing your money." Hailey rolled her eyes, but the pain in her head twisted her face in agony. The secretary saw that her boss was totally out of it and became frantic, but she didn't come unprepared. She opened the office door and pushed in a man in a wheelchair. "Boss, do you remember him? This is Tony," she shouted. "He's your man now." Tony had clearly been dragged out of the hospital, still in a hospital gown. His injuries hadn't healed, bandages and gauze wrapped all over him. A total mess. His right hand, shriveled and twisted, deformed beyond repair. He was truly disabled. Hearing that, Hailey's headache disappeared. Her voice rose. Her temper snapped. She was about to explode from rage. She pointed at Tony and yelled, "Are you insane? I left Rockey for him." Those words cut deep. Painful to hear, even more painful to feel. Tony glanced at Hailey, although he had deliberately seduced her, taking advantage of the situation, and Hailey didn't think highly of him. But hearing those words, Tony couldn't help feeling uncomfortable. He said, "President Hailey, I'm sincere with you. This pretty boy wasn't very skilled. Quite foolish, actually." That phrase, I heard it so many times. My ears almost grew calluses. Hailey acted as if she heard something ridiculous. She even spoke it out loud, in front of everyone, under everyone's watchful eyes. She mocked me, pointing at me. "I've known Rockey for over 10 years, married for 5. We stood by each other through thick and thin. You really think I'd divorce Rockey for someone like him? Do you believe that? Am I stupid? What could he be to compare with Rockey?" Strangely, her words silenced the entire room. Yes, Hailey's question was sharp, right to the core. We'd known each other for so long, our bond as strong as steel. Would it really all fall apart because of a low-level gigolo, a foolish pretty boy like Tony? No, our problems had started long before that, and they were irreparable. The secretary opened her mouth, but had no answer. Even before she broke the door down, I had already made a call. The head of security at the company was my relative. A pack of security guards pounced like wolves, grabbed the secretary and Tony, twisted their arms, dragged them out. Thanks to them, I got those last 10 minutes. The lawyer switched into professional mode, led Hailey through the entire process. When the last red fingerprint was pressed, it was finally over. The dust settled. I was rich again. I locked the contracts and the USB drives with recordings into the safe. Soon, the safe would be deposited at the bank. No one would be able to get to it. Copies would be held by the lawyer to handle the remaining steps, ensuring I got everything I deserved. Money, shares, the company. It was all rightfully mine. Hailey wasn't stupid. After going through the whole procedure, she understood perfectly what I wanted. Yet she still cooperated because, as she said, she sincerely believed I deserved it all because I was Rockey. So when I asked her for something, she had to give it. But she had a question in her heart. Hesitating, she asked me, was that person really the pretty boy I was involved with? Why would I be with him? She sounded like she heard something absurd. I already have you. How could I want him? You forgot. The matter was done. I was too tired to lie to her anymore. I said plainly, we were broken long ago. I think it started when I lost my child. I looked at her calmly. Hailey, do you remember? My child. You killed it with your own hands. That was the first step in the destruction of our relationship. But even before the child, our conflicts had already been sharp. Hailey once had a very happy, perfect perfect family. Her father was a businessman, her mother a music teacher who played the piano. Their home was rich, warm, harmonious. Hailey remembered her mother, sitting by the window, playing the piano, while she and her father played games in the living room. But everything was gone. When Hailey was 16, her father's investments failed. He owed a huge debt. Her mother chose to divorce him. The family was broken. Her father ran away overnight. And without the marriage to protect her, Hailey's mother was still chased by debt collectors. At the critical moment, she pushed Hailey out to bear the burden. Hailey's mother broke down, screaming that she was already divorced. Doesn't he still have a daughter? Go find his daughter. All the problems fell on Hailey's shoulders. The debt collectors threatened Hailey's father, saying they would chop off one of Hailey's hands to force him to come back, but Hailey's father never returned. What happened next is another story. I became the most important person in Hailey's life. We supported each other, walked through storm and stress together, and made it to where we are today. On the day we had some success with our startup, her father came back. He had suffered many hardships on the road and returned with a limp. Hailey's mother had remarried years ago. She now had a happy family, with children. In a way, Hailey's family was whole again, filling a gap in her life. But at the same time, her family faced a big problem. An investor's son got close to Hailey. They hit it off. Their relationship was ambiguous, facing a gamble with only gains and no losses. Hailey's father, a businessman, urgently hoped his daughter would seize the opportunity. After all, I was just a poor man who started from nothing. But the other side was a genuine rich second generation, like a carp jumping through the Dragon Gate. He hoped his daughter would live a good life. But Hailey and I were secretly married. Our marriage had been kept secret to make our work easier. But to the outside world, Hailey was a successful and beautiful career woman. Who wouldn't want a woman like that? Hailey's parents felt guilty toward their daughter for many years, especially after the harsh battles of business. Hailey suffered a lot, both openly and secretly. She became silent, cold, strict, distant. I, on the other hand, became smooth, worldly, flexible. Our union was originally very good, but the olive branch from that investor was better. It could lift her to a higher social class. Hailey's parents knew about our long relationship. They just didn't know we were married. So, they secretly talked to me several times, hoping I would give up Hailey. When emotions ran high, Hailey's mother used her own experience to prove her point. She said Hailey's father went bankrupt and divorced her immediately to not drag her down. Now she thought I should do the same, not be a burden to Hailey. How can anyone stop their loved one from running to a better person? At that time, I had just finished a project, worked overtime for days, was exhausted and gloomy. I sat in front of them with a forced smile. I'm not stopping her from moving on. I'm stopping her from bigamy. They never expected that. Without hesitation, I pulled out my phone and showed them a photo of our marriage certificate. It was a total victory. Hailey is great, but there are plenty of great women out there. I said, even if she divorces me now, tries her luck, second marriages aren't always welcomed, and this company is mine. If I leave, I'll take half with me. That cut off all arguments. Hailey's parents looked at each other, speechless. They began to have opinions about me. Hailey loved me deeply, but I wasn't the son-in-law they wanted. So many years, Hailey and I lived and died together. I truly believed I was not only her man, but her most important comrade in arms. But Hailey's parents were traditional, believed men should earn money, and women should enjoy life at home. They didn't accept me. Instead, they disliked me even more. After the investor's son incident, they thought I ruined Hailey's life. Why couldn't she be a rich wife, living a peaceful life? Why did she have to work every day? At home, arguments happened every day. Hailey's parents fought with me. Hailey fought with them. Hailey and I fought. My own parents got involved. It never ended. My parents thought Hailey and I had been through every hardship together. My dad yelled, "You two ran off and left your daughter behind back then. Now what right do you have to show your face?" But Hailey's parents didn't see it that way. They thought I wasn't good enough for Hailey, looked down on me, and expected me to hand over half of my company to her. The family crisis lasted for about 3 or 4 years. No matter how strong a relationship is, it can't withstand that kind of wear and tear. But then one day, there was a turning point. Hailey got pregnant. It was an unplanned pregnancy. She didn't want the child. At that time, Hailey and I were already in a Cold War. Hailey's mom had heart disease. She thought I was too harsh toward her. After Hailey got pregnant, her parents went crazy tormenting me, doing everything they could to force me to transfer all my assets to Hailey and her parents, to make me give up everything. I refused. In the end, they chose the most extreme method. One day, after work, I took the elevator down to the company's basement level 2 to get in my car and go home. Suddenly, a group of people rushed out, put a bag over my head, grabbed me, and tried to shove me into the car. I'd been in business for many many years, faced many attacks and revenge attempts, but I fought back fiercely. During the fight, Hailey's father punched me hard, right in the temple. I was hit so badly, blood poured from my nose. I fell backwards onto the floor. My vision went white in flashes. Yes, I lay there helpless, unable to move. When I came to, those people were all frozen. Everyone looked at me in fear. Their hats and masks had been torn off, revealing their true faces. They were Hailey's relatives, and I lay there bleeding, my face and mouth covered in blood, looking awful. Someone's going to die. Someone shouted nervously. You said you wanted to teach him a lesson. Now it's going too far. No one dared to move anymore. In the end, the company's security guards took me to the hospital. My parents were furious. They had never been that angry before. I was their only son. When I insisted on being with Hailey, and even worked to help pay her family's debts, they were already unhappy with Hailey. So after the incident, my parents reported it to the police without hesitation, pulled up the surveillance footage, determined to send Hailey's father to jail. At that moment, Hailey knelt on the ground, begged my parents for mercy. Fine, I'll let you off. My mother sat by my hospital bed, tears streaming down her face. Then why won't your parents let my son go? What wrong did my son do? Sure, he's not rich, but how has he treated you all these years? Don't you have any conscience? You begged me to spare your parents, but where were you when they beat my son? Every word struck hard. Hailey shook all over, kneeling on the ground. Her face was pale, but she said firmly, "That's my father. I can't watch him go to jail. If you don't spare him, I'll abort the baby and divorce Rockey." My parents went crazy hearing that. What kind of daughter-in-law was this? No matter how much they tried to reason, they refused to back down. They pressed charges against Hailey's father. He was eventually convicted of intentional injury and sent to prison. Hailey followed through. She went alone to the hospital, had the surgery to abort the baby. Her heart was truly cold. Because of this, our relationship faded. Years of constant arguing, daily torment, not to mention, her father was still in jail. How could we be together? How could we face each other? How could we ever be as close as before? A mirror shattered into millions of pieces. Even gods couldn't restore it to new again. I hated Hailey in my heart. I hated her parents. We were doing fine, but her parents kept picking on me, despising my ordinary background, despising that I wasn't from a rich family, forcing me to hand over all my assets. Why should I give it all away just because of what they said? I'm not that kind of man. I'm Rockey, a good man, with fire and wind in my blood, a man with knives and fury. Things escalated and got worse. I refused to bow my head. I refused to forgive. In the end, we lost our child. Hailey lost her father again. We hated and blamed each other, so we argued, cursed, red-faced, furious. Our love slowly died, until finally, I caught Hailey and her male secretary in bed. At that moment, I felt relief. I was tired of this torturous relationship. Now with outsiders involved, everything fell apart. Our marriage had truly come to an end. Of course, I never thought I would ever see young Hailey again, the girl who loved me the most, because when we were young, we never imagined we'd come this far. But there was no going back. It proved that striking first was the right choice. Because, after I took all of Hailey's assets, Tony went crazy. He couldn't tolerate being publicly mocked by Hailey, nor accept ending up with a woman who had nothing. After all his scheming, was today what he wanted. Hailey's head hurt badly. She stumbled out, heading to the hospital. Tony was going back to the hospital too. The secretary drove. They sat in the back seat. No one spoke. Watching Hailey's dazed, painful look, Tony suddenly snapped. He hated so much that he opened the car door and shoved Hailey out. The door opened while the car was moving. He pushed her down on purpose. Though the speed was slow, Hailey fell hard. Luckily, there weren't many cars on the road, so she didn't get run over, but her head hit the roadside greenery hard. Are you crazy? The secretary slammed the brakes. Terrified, she shouted, "Annie, you told her to break them up, not to kill her." Meanwhile, Tony laughed wildly in the backseat. He laughed. Did that woman get Rockey kicked out of the company? She sure did. Crazy. All of them were crazy. The secretary rushed out to save Hailey. Hailey was completely limp, collapsed by the roadside greenery. Blood pooled beneath her head, her fate uncertain. I had just finished depositing the safe at the bank. Then I got another call from the hospital. Last time Hailey crashed into a guardrail. This time she slammed her head into the greenery. I have to admit, it was impressive, but also kind of dumb. I didn't want to go at first, but the secretary's nonstop calls drove me crazy, so I went. I thought maybe 20-year-old Hailey was difficult. She needed me at the hospital to feel safe. When I hurried to the hospital, ready to comfort her, the curtain pulled back, and I saw a pair of calm, tired eyes. I froze. Hailey lay on the bed, her head wrapped in thick bandages. I stood nearby. For a moment, I didn't move or speak, because between us, there had long been nothing left to say. Finally, I said politely, "President Hailey, long time no see." She said nothing, just looked at me with those calm, tired eyes. "Get well soon," I said politely. "See you at court next Wednesday. Don't get into any more accidents." Tony was arrested. I never expected that. His insane act drew the police in, who also brought in experts to restore the car's dashcam footage. From Hailey's last accident, the footage recorded their argument. Tony hysterical, Hailey dismissive. I also learned something important. Tony was hired by Hailey's mother. He was the son of her mother's close friend, waiting eagerly to replace me, become the wealthy son-in-law. And the secretary was also hired by Hailey's mother. She was prepared to scheme against me. But Tony was crazy. On the highway, he grabbed Hailey's steering wheel. The car sped out of control, hit the guardrail heat-in, and flipped over. Tony was on the right side, injured badly. This time, he drove himself straight to jail. Hearing this left me conflicted. Parents love their children, but treat their daughter's partner like dirt. Maybe President Hailey is just not destined for a happy marriage. At this moment, we stood outside the courthouse, holding our documents, waiting for our number to be called. I said sarcastically, "The men you meet are basically all a little crazy. Either crazy about work or crazy about love. From now on, keep your eyes open. Find yourself a rich, handsome heir. Make your parents happy. I wonder whose son is unlucky enough to work as a servant for your family." Hailey's head injury hadn't healed yet, still wrapped in thick bandages. She looked a little funny, like an Indian man. Inside the courthouse, there were couples getting married, couples getting divorced, laughter and anger everywhere. My sarcasm barely scratched the surface. She looked at me, calm, tired, and a little dazed. I wasn't sure what she was thinking. Maybe her head injury scrambled her thoughts. She suddenly asked, "Do you hate me?" I asked back, "Don't you hate me?" She shook her head. "No." I smiled. "Then thank you," I said sincerely. "After all, you're leaving with nothing now." But the next moment, unexpectedly, Hailey looked at the marriage certificate in her hand, then grabbed my hand. Her tone softened, careful, pleading. "Can we not get divorced? Can we start over?" That was it. Her head really was damaged. My expression shifted. "Are you suffering from amnesia again?" "No, Rocky," she said. At that time, I thought I was going to die. All the past flashed before my eyes like a slideshow. "I'm sorry. Can we start over?" Faced with her request, I said nothing. Instead, I asked her, "Do you know what I was thinking when you had the accident?" Hailey shook her head. "No idea." At that time, I sat there. I pointed to a corner of the courthouse, waiting for you for 4 or 5 hours. You didn't come. Do you know what I thought? When I heard you had the accident and lost your memory, I thought, why didn't you just die? Hailey froze. I laughed. If you had died in that accident, I would have inherited everything. No one would have pitied me. If you had died then, that would have been the best ending. You ask if I hate you. How could I not? I'm 30 years old. You cheated on me. You kicked me out of the company. I lost my career and my family. I suffered half my life for nothing. Your parents humiliated and hurt me. You did too, messing around with another man in our home, our marriage bed. You ask if I hate you. I wish you were dead right now. I laughed out loud. Tears came to my eyes. Not sure what I was laughing at. Maybe at her foolishness. In her foolish hope of reconciliation, Hailey stood there, speechless, until the bright red marriage certificate was taken from our hands, and the divorce papers were handed over. I was satisfied. As I left, I got in the car, saw her still standing there. I suddenly looked back and said to her, "If you really can't let go, you can hate me. I'll take more of the marital property. You owe me. If you don't like it, sue me." Those words made Hailey tremble. She looked at me as if the 20-year-old and 30-year-old Hailey overlapped, but her lips quivered and her face was pale. At 20, we loved fiercely. At 30, we still had money. Now, she had lost everything. From now on, I would completely leave her. She stood there, watching me drive away, not once looking back. So be it. The story is short, not hard to tell. We met once, but love was not meant to be. She would move on to her future, and I to mine. The greatest regret in the world is that we started well, but never said goodbye properly. Though many years ago, when we were young, we thought we'd accompany each other through thousands of mountains and rivers. The end. If you like Kitten's story, please follow and like it. Updated every morning at 9 a.m.